All right. Hello, everybody. Happy International Dark Sky Week. My name is Betty Maya Foote, and it is an honor to be here today with Johan Eklöf and Paul Bogard. And we are very excited to be celebrating International Dark Sky Week 2023 with all of you around the world. If you are joining us, please pop a hello in the chat with where you are tuning in from. I am in sunny Tucson, Arizona today, and honored to be joined here with two very, very awesome authors about dark skies to celebrate our first event for International Dark Sky Week. So I will introduce Johan, and Johan Eklöf is a bat consultant and writer. Born in 1973 with a PhD in zoology. His thesis was on vision in echolocating bats. He has 2 translated books and another 5 in Swedish only, and he lives in Ulricehamn, West Sweden.
That's a tricky one.
He's married with 2 children who are 15 and 18, and we are so glad to have him here with us today. And I will turn it over to Michael.
Hello, everyone. Happy International Dark Sky Week. I am Michael Reimer, the Program Associate with the International Dark Sky Association. It's my honor to introduce Mr. Paul Bogard, author of End of Night, Searching for Natural Darkness in an Age of Artificial Light. Paul's a native Minnesotan. Growing up, he explored the forest and watching the stars near one of the many, many lakes in the state. In the northern part, he has lived and taught in all over the country in New Mexico, Nevada, Wisconsin, North Carolina, and Virginia, and is now Associate Professor of English and Environmental Studies at Hamline University in St. Paul, Minnesota. Paul, thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.
All right, I think we will turn it over to Paul and Johan now. Johan will give us a reading from the Darkness Manifesto and then chat with Paul about why writing for dark skies is important and impactful.
Yeah, I'm here with the American version of the Darkness Manifesto, and I will read the introduction of the book, which is called The Disappearing Night. So the reading will take about 10 minutes, and then me and Paul will have a chat about darkness or whatever comes to mind. My flashlight sweeps over a demon painted black with bat wings and a snake for a tail. The creature looks as if it's been thrown backward, light radiating from its mouth, as if it has tried to swallow the light, but can no longer resist its power. The creature of darkness is dying. I'm in an 18th century church in Sweden, painted with biblical themes, and in the far back you can find the most horrific devils and demons, put there to remind us of the torments of hell. But perhaps the church painter also wanted to tell us what we can overcome the dangers of darkness. For the church perspective, bats are the devil's minions, filthy animals that are symbols of both literal and philosophical darkness, in opposition to the light of God. So it's a bit ironic that churches have so often become the nesting places of these creatures. I continue exploring the church, climbing up a flight of stairs and stepping through a little door into the attic. On the old wooden floorboards are piles of guano and several butterfly wings, a clear sign that the church is inhabited by the brown long-eared bat. The dusk that flickers in through the slats grows weaker, and outside the sky turns navy blue. The humid night air entering the attic carries as a pleasant smell of freshly cut grass, tar, and sun-warmed wood. The bats are unwilling to show themselves from under the eaves this early in the evening, so I go outside to meet them in the cemetery and watch them alight into the summer night. One after another, they take off headfirst from the roof to the nearest tree and its protective dark shadows. In a fitful dance, they glide, inaudible to the human ear, by the red-painted wooden church alongside the hedges and around the treetops, searching for insects. Soon the bats will be gone, swallowed by the night. Swedish churches and their outbuildings have frequently been tended in the same way for centuries and have grown to be important havens for animals and plants in an ever-changing world. Year after year, long-eared bats have moved into turrets and attics in the early summer to give birth to new generations. In the 1980s, two-thirds of the churches in southwest Sweden had their own bat colony. Today, 40 years later, research I've done with my colleagues shows that this number has been reduced by a third due to light pollution and other factors. Because the churches all glow like carnivals in the night. District after district has installed modern floodlights to show the architecture it's proud of, all of it, while the animals, who have for centuries found safety in the darkness of the church, and have for 70 million years made their night their abode. They're slowly but surely vanishing from these places, maybe completely. Sitting in the cemetery in the July night, I'm not only the company of bats. I can see a hedgehog, beetles making their way up through the grass toward the starry sky, and above the headstones, caddisflies dancing like spirits. I start to relax in the gathering darkness, as all the impressions of the day are traded for more subtle experiences, and my eyes become slowly acclimated to the night. I've entered another dimension that few others ever take the time to visit. It's not just the bats and I who enjoy the darkness. Most animals are more active at twilight, such as the hedgehog that keeps me company in the late hour. Half of the insects on the planet are nocturnal, and for the last couple of years, we have been drowning in alarming reports regarding their disappearance. Forestry, environmental toxins, large-scale farming, and climate change. Many causes are mentioned, but little is said about light, even though the light-sensitive moth is one of those most disappearing. Moths looking for nectar in the darkness are easily confused by all the lights. They either don't fly at all, believing that the dawn is about to break, or they're disoriented by the beams of light when they try to navigate by using the moon. Exhausted, they die or get killed by predators without having fulfilled the nocturnal mission, and thus fewer plants are pollinated. Many of us have probably seen the phenomenon on our porch under a streetlight. The brighter the lights, the greater the attraction. The light lures the insects from forests and villages, from the countryside into cities, depleting entire ecosystems. Mossebo Church may lack floodlighting, but some light still reaches this place. A few lights are alongside the walking paths, and in the sky a faint orange glow can be seen coming from the nearest village. This is light pollution, a collective term used for light that is regarded as superfluous, but which still has a great impact on our lives and our ecosystems. The term was coined by astronomers, but is today used by ecologists, physiologists, and neurologists who study the effects of the disappearing night. It is no longer just a question of stars and insects. It's about all living things, including we humans. Ever since the birth of our planet, day has been followed by night, and every cell in every living organism has built-in machinery working in harmony with that rhythm. The natural light calibrates our inner circadian rhythm and controls hormones and bodily processes. Up until about 150 years ago, when the light bulb was invented, these processes were allowed to develop slowly and without disturbance. But today, streetlights and floodlights ominously supersede natural night light and disturb this ancient circadian rhythm. The artificial light, the polluted light, is now dominant. Light that causes birds to sing in the middle of the night, sends turtle babies in the wrong direction, and prevents the mating rituals of coral in reefs, which take place under the light of the moon. Humanity's desire to illuminate the world makes Earth viewed from space seem to glow in the night. Every city and every street is visible, a long way out in the cosmic darkness, which is perhaps one of the most obvious signs that we have entered a new era, the Anthropocene, the time of humans. Beneath the illuminated sky, in the lit up cities, we create we have created, we can no longer see any stars, and many of us don't remember what the Milky Way looks like. We're missing out on one of nature's grand treasures, the spectacles of the sky with its breathtaking perspectives, its falling stars, and on occasion its strikingly beautiful northern lights. Light pollution is still a term unknown to many, but it's an exploding field of research, and light will probably soon be strictly regulated as noise. The LED light, the modern diode, which has enabled the explosion of lighting in private gardens and industrial parking lots, could also be a solution to the problem. Light and darkness are not a matter of black and white. We can program and dim the artificial light and adapt it to more natural conditions if we want to. With this book, I examine the impacts that darkness and the night have on all living creatures. In a number of concise chapters, I will share my experiences and thoughts stemming from my 20 years in the service of the night as a bat researcher, traveler, and friend of the darkness. I hope that this book will inspire others, function as a reminder of the importance of letting the night be a part of our lives, and give insight into how much damage artificial light can do. Be a challenge and a manifesto for the natural darkness. Thank you.
Thanks, Johan. That was great. It's really a pleasure to hear you read your work and your words. And I'm always amazed at, I can't imagine reading my book in Swedish. So I appreciate you being able to read so well in English.
Well, coming from Minnesota, perhaps you know the Swedish dialect a bit.
A little bit better. That's right. Absolutely. I do have about a quarter Swedish, as we say. So yeah, I might have a step up on some folks. Speaking of that, one of the things I wanted to ask you was because you reference Sweden a lot in the book, which makes sense. And I wonder if in your mind, I guess two questions. One is, do you feel like when it comes to darkness and light pollution that Sweden is better than other places than you've seen in terms of understanding and the problem, or potentially worse? And also, I guess, just do you feel like Swedes in general have a different feeling about darkness and light pollution than other places that you've been or read about? How is Sweden a good example of what we're talking about, and maybe how is it potentially different than some of the things we've talked about?
We're a good example in that way that we have a great sense for nature. We're nature-loving people, so we like to be out in the forest, and we have this. There are no restrictions. You can be in the forest everywhere in Sweden, and you pick berries and whatever, which is a good thing. And we have a lot of space, so we're unintentionally very good at darkness. But I wouldn't say that municipalities or the government, at least maybe the last year, but before that, they had no idea of this problem.
Yeah. That's interesting to me. It does seem, one of the issues that comes up, certainly for me, came up a lot, and I think continues to come up whenever I talk about this issue, is our fear of the dark, our human fear of the dark. Did you run into that? Have you run into that with people that you talk to about this issue?
Yes, quite a lot. I talked to quite many people before I started to write, and everyone I talked to, they both said it's a very good idea to write a book about darkness, because everyone had so much to say about darkness, but they also was a little bit afraid of it. But perhaps that's that what makes it a little bit interesting. And if we did not have respect for the night, perhaps the sense of awe under a starry night wouldn't be such a great experience. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think, part of the feeling of awe is that there's an element of fear to it, right? It's maybe um, something that's so overwhelming, big, or that we feel a little bit, and maybe some of that is good. I know in the States I think the basis of so much of our overlighting, so much of our light pollution is just a general fear of the dark, and an idea that we could eliminate crime by just lighting everything up, which is crazy.
Yeah, I mean it's this feeling of safety, or feeling of insecurity, it's very hard to address. I mean, you can come up with all those facts that, well, there are no studies showing that more lighting will reduce crimes, but it's a very deep feeling.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. One of the things that I loved about your book is the emphasis on our fellow creatures, on wildlife. It's something when I've given my talks over the last several years that I always emphasize myself. That's the thing that motivates me the most. To somehow speak for all these animals that can't speak for themselves, in a sense. Um, I guess I would invite you to just speak about that as a motivating factor for you as well, if that is a motivating factor for you as well, to kind of speaking on behalf of wildlife, even as I think we both argue, of course, that darkness is important to human beings. This idea that I want to emphasize this. The costs to the natural world are so immense at a time when wildlife already has so much to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, coming from the world of bats, I mean, they pretty much uh, personifies the darkness.
That's right.
But when I started doing the research for the book, I mean, it got so much broader. Uh, when I started, it was, I don't know, 2018 or something. The book came out in 2020 in Sweden, but at that time I could almost catch up with the science. But during my writing, or during my research, the field just exploded.
Yeah.
And it was so, and every animal or every plant studied, there was a new effect. So the field is it's such a huge field, and I didn't realize it to start with. I mean, I know things about bats and insects, but then it got so much bigger than I thought it would be.
Yeah, that's right. I've always loved the idea of that life on Earth evolved with bright days and dark nights, and we need both. And uh, it just makes sense that light pollution would impact everything that we would study in a way, right? Um, Oh yeah, it looks like we have a point to this, comment to this. The impact of light pollution on many species cannot be understated. For what species could this be the one straw that breaks their back? The difference between survival and extinction. Um, yeah, is that true? I mean, I know there are many different types of bats, but are there bats that light pollution may be the last straw, the final straw?
Could be. One of the things that made me write the book in the first place was that we studied these long-eared bats, as I mentioned in the introduction here, living in churches. And with all the floodlighting, these were very common bats in Sweden 20, 30 years ago. But now they're on the red list. And they're on the red list only because of light pollution. And I'm not sure there is any other mammal on the red list at the moment where we have shown this is just due to light pollution, but I'm sure there will be. So, yeah, there are animals on the brink. But the problem is even worse with insects, I guess. I mean, night insects are just dropping.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I don't think I still think my sense is that most Americans, at least, are not really aware of the danger to insects right now. And I think probably some people think, "Oh, that's great. I hate mosquitoes." Um, we don't understand the importance of insects, but it really is an immensely serious problem. The decline in insects, right?
Yeah, I read this Swiss study about pollination, and they found that there was the pollination frequency dropped by 60% when the meadows they were studying were lit by streetlights.
That's right. Yep. Yep. Yeah, I was impressed, and I really liked. There are a couple times, at least a couple times, in your book, where you connected global warming and artificial light, and you made the point to put those things together. Um, and I think that's important. They are. I've always said that I enjoy working with the issue of light pollution because it is fairly readily solvable. Like at some level, you can turn off the lights pretty easily, whereas with global warming or climate change, it's much more complex. But I like, of course they're linked. And is there anything else that you want to add about that in terms of helping people understand maybe the connections between those issues?
Yeah, well, for plants and animals to know what time it is of the year or which hour in the day, there are pretty much two things you can use. It's temperature and light. That will tell you, is it summer? Is it winter? Is the autumn coming? Is it night? Is it day? And if temperature is rising on the Earth and the light is increasing, I mean, it will be very hard to keep up, and I think all creatures are jet lagged somehow.
That's a good way to put it. And I was really impressed. Let's see. I don't know if I can find it right away, but I was impressed where you were kind of talking about that, the impacts to temperature and light, and just kind of the fact that it doesn't take very much in terms of shifts or changes to really, confuse things.
There's so many specialized species out there. I mean,
Right.
for example, flowers flowering early in the summer or late in the summer. We have insects pollinating these plants, and just a small shift in temperature or light, it will trick the insects or the plant into, well, it's the wrong time of the season, and we will mess up the whole ecosystem almost.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to hop in here because this conversation's too good. I want to be a part of it. So thank you guys. And I have some questions kind of for both of you, just about your experience as an author, as authors about dark skies and light pollution. I see a lot of incredible dark sky advocates in the chat listening in, and I know they all have really cool stories and thoughts and things to share. What are some tips that both of you would share with people who may be interested in getting started to write about dark skies and light pollution? And as a follow-up, how can that writing and how can your writings be used as a tool for dark sky advocacy? Maybe we'll start with you, Paul.
Okay. Well, I think that with this issue, when I started writing, I was first interested in the stars, and then I think as Johan suggests that however you kind of enter into the issue of light pollution, you pretty quickly find it linked to so many other issues. And I think one of the things that I've really enjoyed working with it is all the different research I get to do and to learn about. And so I think I think of I can't think of his name offhand, but he was a Belgian activist that I talked with several years ago, and he said, you know, when you go to talk to elected officials about this, you must be weaponed with knowledge. And you know, it was, we in English we typically say armed with knowledge, but I love that he said weaponed with knowledge. It's a phrase I've never forgotten, and I think it just speaks to this idea that if you want to write about this, you certainly can just write about your experience, which is, our experiences are really valuable. But I think it makes it can make writing even more powerful. We certainly see this in Johan's work, because it becomes more powerful when you're able to weave in the research. And as Johan said, it's just exploding. There's so much, you know, in the 10 years since The End of Night came out, I mean, it's just, you know, there's so much more that wasn't even on the table. So I would encourage everybody to become weaponed with knowledge and to mix that in with your personal stories and experiences when you come to writing.
I would say that reading End of Night, or perhaps my book, perhaps you get the feeling of you need to visit all those amazing places. But for me, it was very important to have this everyday experience. I mean, you could just turn the lights out for a bit, sitting in your armchair, for example, just letting go of all, I mean, the intense lighting and all the impressions, or have a night walk just around your house. Just have a little bit of darkness every day. But of course, trying to reach those destinations where you can see the Milky Way and falling stars, and as in the case for, I mean, luckily we have northern lights here sometimes. But still, I would like to say that the everyday experience is not to forget.
I would completely support that, and I think that, you know, I did travel to a lot of places for the book, but really I was most interested in what is the daily experience of darkness and nighttime for most people, and I always encourage people that wherever you live to get out and experience night and understand it, and you know, to back to this question, to then write about it, and to, you know, let's try to spread the word that you don't have to be in the middle of nowhere, quote unquote, to appreciate nighttime, the value of darkness. You know, it can be wherever you are, and to write about that. Yeah, I don't know. In terms of, you know, where will the research develop? I think I would say, as I was kind of mentioning a little bit ago, that I think the research on wildlife will just continue to bloom. You know, it's just essentially everything that we do study seems to tell us that artificial light, is not good for life, right? And so if we haven't yet, if we don't already know that about a certain species or a certain ecosystem, it's probably just because we haven't studied it yet. And when we do, we'll find out that light at night is not good.
And there's so much more to find out when it comes to light designing. When I first started to have talks about the book, I thought the light designers would be a little bit like the enemy. But it was rather the opposite. They were the ones who liked this the most. They felt that, well, a new field is opening. We can do research and, you know, try to find those fauna-friendly lightings and do research on how to put lights. So that field will be very interesting to follow.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
All right. Well, do we have any more? If there's anyone in the audience who has questions, we're probably going to start wrapping up pretty soon. So pop them in the chat right away if you would like to have an opportunity to speak to Paul or Johan, who are incredible dark sky authors. I know it's been an honor to listen to you read your own book, Johan, today. So thank you so much for piquing everyone's interest for your great book. And Paul, your book was the first book I ever read on light pollution. And I think so many people, it was their entry point into the field of dark skies. And I love being able to tag you on Slack when advocates are like, I'm here because I read The End of Night. And I'm like, oh, well, Paul's here too. So it's really, really cool that you're still involved with dark skies and being one of the...
Yeah, I read it twice before I started to write.
That's great. That's great.
All right, it looks like maybe we have a couple more questions here. So Raul asks, what are the chances to get some major documentary about this issue in major media venues? So as authors and people in like the media field, do you have any ideas about that?
I've been contacted a couple of times. So there are some documentaries in the making, or at least they try to get the fundings for it, but those things take really long time. So hard to tell. But I think you will see that anytime soon.
Yeah, I agree. There have been, some people would know The City Dark from several years ago is really powerful. One of the, Johan was probably referencing, I was contacted by some, there's a French documentary, I think, that's somebody from Paris. So that might be coming. There's a new one that just came out from Northern Minnesota Public Broadcasting. So, I think the question is kind of, when are we going to get the major one that, impacts everybody? And I don't know, but I think there are a number of ones that are sort of just below that major motion picture that are on the way.
Yeah, The City Dark was actually how I learned about light pollution. It was my first entry into it. And yeah, we need another one like that. But yeah, there's also one that just came out in Maine. There's one that's going to be coming out in Texas. People are working on kind of local documentaries all over the place. And I do feel like potentially that's almost more impactful locally because people really can resonate and connect with that local message.
Yeah.
So I'm going to close it out with this final question from Adam Cruiser. Hi, Adam. Good to see you here. For both Johan and Paul, what is the best opportunity for us to advance and champion this issue globally? How do we make light pollution? How do we start reducing light pollution from all of your research? What do you think is the best way?
Well, the energy crisis is helping a little bit. So it's a good starting point for the discussions anyway. And I mean, information, but when there are so many studies going on dealing with human health. And I think that will be an eye-opener for many people.
Yeah, I agree. 25 years ago, people had not heard the phrase light and the two words light and pollution in the same phrase, and I think we've come a long way from that in terms of awareness. But we have a ways to go. And I guess tying back to a question I had for Johan earlier, I really liked his connection of global warming or the climate crisis with the issue of artificial light. It seems to me that our use of artificial light presents an opportunity, to use light more thoughtfully and intelligently, to use energy more thoughtfully and intelligently, and that ties right in with what we need to be doing with climate as well.
Great. Well, thank you both so much. I'm going to bring Michael back on here as well, so we can all say a huge thank you. Thank you, Johan. Thank you, Paul. It has been an honor to chat with both of you today. And I think I say from all of us watching and all of us around the world, a huge thank you for your important work to bring this issue to the forefront. Both of your books have been incredibly impactful, and they've impacted tons of lives and made incredible changes and moves forward into making the world a darker and healthier place for all living beings. So a huge thank you to Johan and Paul. And I will just remind everyone that we are not done. This is just the start of International Dark Sky Week. This is our kickoff event, and there's tons more to come. So make sure to join us back here on Tuesday for Trivia Tuesday and our presentation of the brand new State of the Science document. So we'll be with John Barentine, who's the trivia master and dark sky master in general. And we have a little online trivia game and then presentation about the new science that is happening in the world. So you do not want to miss that. And Michael, want to tell us about our next events as well? You're on mute.
My apologies. Our next events will be, let me pull up my calendar here. Bear with me. On Wednesday, we have our monthly Night Matters meeting with Mr. Travis Longcore. Will be telling us about his research with wildlife and light pollution. So expanding a little bit more about what Paul and Johan spoke about today. And then Friday, I think, is our next one with our Star Walk with Sam Yukta and Kelly Beatty. Kelly from Sky and Telescope magazine. And Sam Yukta is a member of the IDA board. And they're both going to take us on a little tour of the night sky for what you will see up in a light pollution-free sky, a cloud-free sky, hopefully where you are as well, anywhere in the world, both northern and southern hemisphere. So please join us for that on Friday. And then we have our advocate mixer after that, a couple hours after the sky tour. So please join us then to mix and mingle with other advocates so we can talk about what we've done this week to celebrate the dark skies above.
Great. Well, again, a huge thank you to Johan and Paul. This was so much fun. Everyone should get a copy of Johan's book. Everyone should get a copy of Paul's book. Definitely great homework for Dark Sky Week. If there's one thing you guys want to do to be involved, why not curl up on this cozy Sunday and read about dark skies and support these amazing humans who have done so much for the field of dark skies. And thank you for celebrating International Dark Sky Week with us. And we will see you back here soon. So goodbye, everybody, and thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you, buddy. Bye, guys.